Hello, my name is Ryan Day. I'm partner and head of technology at Moore Kingston Smith. Today we're thinking of all things cyber. It's a growing importance in the world, and we're with Domanska, a cybersecurity consultant at Moore Kingston Smith. Just anecdotally, I was at an event recently, and I was blown away by the fact that somebody said one of the most important things in cybersecurity is if you're attacked, not to have your kind of cyber insurance policy online, because obviously, if it's found, it creates a bit of a benchmark for the payout, which, wasn't something that I was thinking about, and certainly none of the CFOs in the room were thinking about. But from your perspective, what should growing technology businesses, especially in the SaaS area, be considering?
Important thing to think about is one of the biggest shifts is obviously AI is emerging, and it's not just businesses using it, but also threat actors doing the same, which means that they can use it to scale and sharpen their attacks. So phishing is more convincing, and for example, deepfakes are harder to detect. And ultimately, the vulnerabilities that are trying to find, they're able to find it way faster. And it's important to think that the barrier to entry basically has lowered, which means that less sophisticated attackers can launch more effective attacks.
And what about AI being used in the business? For example, we tell all our trainees not to put client confidential data into Copilot, ChatGPT. There's always the great unknown of where that data's going. So how are we educating people on that kind of risk?
Yeah, so basically that's another dimension, because obviously businesses are adopting AI to move faster. But then if they don't have clear policies and governance in place, then that just introduces the risk. And from both regulatory and commercial perspectives, the accountability still sits within the organization. So we cannot forget about that.
And then I guess the risk to a lot of our businesses, again, they're processing large volumes of data naturally. Is there risks that they could be hacked by, working with the likes of Stripe and those supply chains, so there's weaknesses in their system because of the people they're working with?
Yes, exactly. Because obviously the software as a service businesses don't operate in isolation. They always rely on APIs, cloud providers, or any third-party integrations. And it's important to remember that even if your own controls are strong, any weakness in any of those third-party systems can introduce risk to your own system. So now we're actually seeing more incidents that start somewhere within that wider supply chain.
And I guess everybody always thinks of being held to ransom and a payout if there's an event. But what are the wider ramifications? Can having a weakness expose effects like the company valuation, those kind of things?
Yes, definitely. Your valuation, but also obviously reputational damage. And yes, also let's not forget about the commercial aspects, because enterprise customers and investors are now just stricter when it comes to cyber due diligence because of what we spoke about before. And that means that security questionnaires are longer and the investment rounds are just deeper. And any findings of any risks can actually impact the evaluation, as you mentioned before. And it's all about showing your confidence in your own ecosystem, not only to the investors, obviously also your customers and team members as well. So the cyber maturity, it's important to stress that it's not just compliance, because it supports the trust, and that leads to faster sales, and that leads to growth.
And so I suppose if I was getting ready for an exit, everything you've just said there obviously is of critical importance, but how do I go about addressing that risk? What's the first thing that I should be doing? Have we got any examples of clients we've worked with recently that have gone on that journey with us?
Yes, so there was one client that had a data breach, as we mentioned before, about the misuse of AI. So basically, one employee uploaded names of 1,500 colleagues into ChatGPT. And obviously, their intentions were to work more efficiently. But the reality is that the sensitive data was exposed externally. And that just shows that, use of AI without having those policies and governance in place can actually introduce the risk. But the good thing is that we help them turn it into like a learning moment, because we gave them the access, as I previously mentioned, to a security platform. So their teams were able to build their awareness, and they were able to actually learn how to use the AI properly and safely.
And I suppose slightly naive here on my part, how did that risk or how did that client approach us? Because did the employees self-report themselves internally that they'd done this mistake?
Yes, they actually did, which is really good that they were accountable, and that suggests that they do have a good company culture and the incident reporting culture.
And I guess, that probably didn't lead to any financial loss or anything like that. There was just an educational piece.
Yes.
Is there anything that we've done with clients recently that have been a victim and have been held to, ransom? Is there a regulatory piece that we can talk about?
Yes. So that's not a client that had a ransom, but it was an AI medical company. And since it's an AI medical company, they had to align with security and very serious regulatory standards. So we were able to support them by carrying out internal audits that were obviously aligned with ISO 27001 and Cyber Essentials. And after we supported them with that, they were able to ensure their customers that the systems that they're building and using are actually secure, reliable, and fit for purpose, which is the most important thing.
And is there like a self-reporting framework? Do you, if you have got a regulatory body you report to, do you have to notify them within a certain time frame?
Yes.
Presumably that could lead to a situation where you don't have all the facts at the time.
Yes, but that is 72 hours when you have to report about
That's incredibly
the incident.
short, especially if you think about the volume of some of these breaches potentially. Gathering all the facts in 72 hours is really difficult.
It's initial just reporting that the data breach has occurred.
Okay, so you then get a bit of a leeway and you can then ultimately report all the facts after you've done a thorough investigation.
Yes.
Okay. That's, I think, useful for our clients to know. If you was partnering with someone, a CFO approaches me as an audit partner and says, "Look, I'm worried about our cybersecurity." Where would we start the conversation? What would be the first things that we would consider?
Yeah, the things that they should be prioritizing. Basically, it's good to start thinking about what the key risks are, identifying your key risks across data, systems, people, and any third parties. Also thinking of use of your sensitive data. So definitely how it's stored, shared, and used, including the use of AI, as we mentioned before, as it helps to create this baseline, and then it helps you see if you have any governance gaps. And as we mentioned before, let's not forget about the awareness, because it's key. It shouldn't sit just with an IT department. It should be built in your company culture from the start, basically. And when it comes to data protection obligations, you have to ensure that you're following the procedures, whether that's UK GDPR or any other jurisdictions. But our data protection team is here to support you.
I suppose thinking about what we can offer clients in this space, I hear Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus a lot. I don't really know what that means.
Yes.
What does that offering include?
Yes, this ties more into the technical side. So it's really important, because if you think about all these controls, it can get a bit overwhelming. And thankfully, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And there are known security frameworks out there like ISO 27001 or Cyber Essentials. And also when it comes to secure development, you should follow secure development practices like DevSecOps or OWASP. Okay. And also, it also means implementing technical controls, such, we've heard multi-factor authentication all of the time, backups, disaster recovery. And we can do all of that to ensure that the systems are secure and that the security is built in from the start.
And if we were looking to put a framework like Cyber Essentials in place, Are we talking about a 1 week piece of work? Is it a 2-month project?
When it comes to cyber essentials, there's the basic one and the plus one. And I think that the cyber essentials is quite usually you can get certified within a month, I think, for both. But the Cyber Essentials Plus is mostly technical. The Cyber Essentials Basic is a self-assessment.
So Ada, we've covered a lot of ground there. If key messages, what are your final thoughts that CFOs and CTOs should be listening to?
Yeah, so basically for scaling your software as a service business, you should think that proactive cyber and data protection protects your reputation, valuation, and basically strengthens your overall business resilience. And let's not forget that cyber risk is financial risk, and cyber maturity actually accelerates growth. At Moore Kingston Smith, we developed a cybersecurity and data protection maturity framework, which is specifically designed to support scale-ups to understand where they are and what good looks like. So if you'd like an initial guidance, we offer a 30-minute complimentary call so we can review your current initiatives, answer any questions that you may have, and hopefully point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Ada. I think that's a useful summary, and I think there's a lot for our clients and prospects to digest there. If you're in need of any cybersecurity consultancy work, whether that is cyber essentials or penetration testing, then please get in touch with Ada and the wider team, and we can assist.